About 4 years ago, I used to work at a discount emporium. That's how I usually start when people ask why I twitch whenever I hear the chime of a sliding door or the crinkle of a cheap plastic bag. I'm a college graduate now, but back in 2022, I was just another young black man with a degree in hand and no leads in my inbox. My mother, bless her soul, didn't believe in gap years. She told me straight up, "You've got that diploma, now get a paycheck." I don't care if you're digging ditches or bagging groceries. The Emporium was 3 blocks from my house. It was convenient. It was easy. It was supposed to be temporary. I started in the heat of a humid Monday afternoon. My shift was 2,000 p.m. to 9,000 p.m. 5 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. At first, it was fine. I liked the rhythm of stocking. There's a certain peace in aligning boxes of off-brand cereal and hanging plastic toys on metal pegs. I'd put on my headphones, disappear into a podcast, and just exist. The weirdness didn't start with a ghost or a monster. It started with the system. On my 3rd Wednesday, my manager, Jano, a woman who looked as if she had taken her job very seriously, tapped on my shoulder. "I need you on register too," she said. "Jano, I haven't finished the training videos yet," I replied, feeling a spike of anxiety. "I don't really know how the POS system works beyond the basic scan." "You'll figure it out. It's just buttons," she said, her eyes tracking something behind me that wasn't there. She handed me a heavy till drawer and walked away before I could protest. I sat at that register feeling like an imposter. The interface was archaic, a flickering green screen with commands that looked like 1980s DOS code. But for the first hour, it was simple. Scan, bag, take the dollar, hit total. Then came the first glitch. A woman in a faded sun hat placed a bottle of generic dish soap on the belt. The shelf tag said 1.00. Everything in the store was 1.00. That was the brand. That was the promise. I scanned it. The screen bloomed a sickly red. Price, $1.95. I frowned. "Sorry, let me try that again," I said. I deleted the item and rescanned. $1.95. The woman's face contorted instantly. "That's not the right price," she barked. Her voice was unnecessarily loud, vibrating against the plexiglass shield. "It says $1. The sign says $1. "I know, ma'am. I'm sorry. It must be a system error," I said. I called Jano over. She didn't look surprised. She didn't even look annoyed. She just slid her override key into the side of the monitor, twisted it with a practiced flick, and forced the price back to $1.00. She didn't say a word to me. 10 minutes later, it happened again. A pack of pens, $1.95. A bag of chips, $1.95. Every 3rd or 4th item began to bleed upwards. The customers weren't just annoyed, they were feral. They acted as if I were personally reaching into their pockets and stealing their lunch money. By Friday, it wasn't every 3rd item. It was every single item. The psychological toll of 1,000 tiny confrontations is hard to describe. Imagine 8 hours of people screaming at you over 95 cents. I began to dread the sound of the scanner's beep. Each beep was a gamble. Each beep was a potential fight. I tried to fix the prices myself, hunting for a manual override, but the system would lock me out, demanding Jano's key. I felt like I was losing my mind. I'd go home and see the number, $1.95, burned into my eyelids. I asked Jano why the system was doing this. "The store takes what it needs," she muttered, not looking up from her clipboard. Then came the Sunday that broke me. The store was quiet around 7:30 p.m. when a man walked in. He was wearing a suit that was too large for him and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked like a caricature of a businessman. He walked straight to my register with 2 stacks of birthday gift cards. "I need $500 on each of these," he said. His voice was smooth, like oil over glass. "Sir, that's $1,000, I said, my heart starting to hammer. "I'm not sure that I can do that. It'll cause a massive cash shortage in my drawer if you're paying by card, or if it's a scam, I won't have any change for other customers." "It's quite simple, son," he said, leaning over the counter. He smelled like ozone and old paper. "You don't need the manager. Just press total, then F4, then 99. Enter." It bypasses the authorization. It's a vendor test mode. Do it for me. He was asking me to perform functions I knew were restricted. He was a con man, plain and simple, trying to cash out cards by tricking a rookie. But it was the way that he looked at me, like he knew exactly how much I hated this place, that made my skin crawl. I can't do that, I stammered. Press the buttons, he whispered. Help the store get what it needs. I backed away from the register, tripping over my own feet. Ron, I shouted. Ron was the night manager, a hulking guy who usually stayed in the back. Ron came charging out. The con man didn't flinch. He just stood there, smiling at the register screen. When Rowan saw what was happening, he didn't argue. He picked up the store phone and called the police. The man didn't run. He just waited, staring at me, until the sirens grew loud. As the police led the man away, he looked back at me and said, "Check the basement. The prices only go up when the stock is low." That night, after we closed at 9:30 p.m., the store felt different, heavier. Jano and Rowan were in the office, their voices hushed and rhythmic, almost like they were chanting. I told myself I was just going to grab my jacket from the break room, but I found myself standing in front of the heavy steel door that led to the basement. We didn't keep stock down there. We kept it in the back room. The basement was supposed to be off limits due to structural issues. I pushed the door. It wasn't locked. I crept down the concrete stairs. The air grew cold, smelling of copper and wet earth. At the bottom, there was a single flickering fluorescent light. I didn't find boxes of soap or stacks of chips. I found a row of ancient humming servers connected to the store's POS system, but they weren't plugged into a wall. Thick, black cables ran from the machines into a large, rectangular pit in the center of the floor. I walked to the edge and looked down. The pit was filled with inventory, but they weren't products. They were people. Dozens of them, dressed in the green vests of the company, laying in a state of catatonic suspension. They were hooked up to IVs, their skin pale and translucent. And next to each person was a small digital display. Employee E402. Status, drained. Value, 0.05. I realized then why the prices were rising. The store wasn't a business, it was a battery. The system errors, the screaming customers, the psychological stress, it was all designed to harvest the cortisol and emotional exhaustion of the employees. The extra 95 cents wasn't money. It was a measurement of how much life force the store had managed to suck out of the person behind the glass that day. The con man hadn't been trying to steal money. He was trying to overload the system, to trigger a surge that would perhaps wake the sleepers. I looked at the end of the row. There was an empty pod. Above it, a screen flickered to life. It showed my face, my name. Employee 409. Status, primed. Value, 195. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The reason Jano didn't care about the glitches was because the glitches were the point. The store fed on the misery of the cashier and the rage of the customer. I heard the basement door creak open above me. "The system needs to balance, Marcus," Jano's voice echoed down the stairs. She sounded hollow. "You've been such a good earner this week." I didn't wait. I bolted. I didn't go for the stairs. I scrambled up a delivery chute in the corner, tearing my fingernails on the metal, fueled by a terror I've never felt before or since. I burst out into the night air, sprinted to my car, and drove. I didn't go home. I drove until I hit the next state. I sent my resignation via a burner email. I never went back for my last paycheck. I have a good job now, an office job. But sometimes, when I'm at a grocery store and the person in front of me starts arguing about a price difference, I feel that cold copper smell fill my nose. I look at the cashier, seeing the bags under their eyes and the slump of their shoulders, and I wonder how much they're worth today. I also wonder if they've checked the basement. Ever since my twin brother killed himself, I've been seeing the same woman in every mirror. She doesn't have eyes, but she looks right at me. Her mouth is sewn shut, but somehow she speaks to me. Only, I don't hear her with my ears. I hear her in my mind. She says, "You know why I'm here, Vaster. But I'm not Vaster. I'm Revort. I tried telling her that Vaster is dead, but I don't think she believed me. Vaster is not dead. Yet. But you must pay for killing Revort. Then she reaches for me. I don't know if she can reach through the mirror or not, but I don't plan on finding out. I get the fuck out of there when she starts moving. I tried ignoring her, but she always spoke to me. Always told me I had to pay for killing Revort me. She always reached for me. One night, I was at a small get-together at a coworker's apartment, and I really had to use the restroom. I ran into the washroom and shut the door, locked it, and sat on the toilet. About 5 seconds later, I heard her. You know why I'm here, Vaster. I looked up, and there was a mirror on the back of the bathroom door. The woman stared at me. I started wiping as fast as I could, thinking if I could get to the door before she started reaching, maybe I'd be okay. The woman continued to stare at me. I jumped up and hoisted my pants up. The woman's sewn mouth turned up in an evil smile. Come here, she said, extending her arms. Her arms were coming through the mirror. Then her head. I screamed as she seized my face in her leathery left hand. In her right hand, she had an old glass pill bottle. She dumped more than a dozen pills into my screaming mouth. She grabbed a fistful of my hair and yanked my head back so I was looking at the ceiling. Then she used her free hand to cover my mouth. When I fought her, she also pinched my nose. I could hear my friends yelling on the other side of the door, something about a key. Then I blacked out. I woke up 6 hours later in the clinic. They said I ingested 3 times the lethal dose of oxycodone, the same way my brother died. After I was released from intensive care, I was sent to a psychiatric facility. They think I made the whole thing up and tried to kill myself. I spent the first 3 days trying to convince anyone who would listen that it was the woman who did this to me. I wasn't suicidal. After 3 days, I realized that talking about the woman was only making things worse. My meds increased, my sessions were more frequent. When I finally stopped talking about the woman, I was on 2 antipsychotics and an antidepressant. I spent 6 weeks in the psychiatric facility. After a couple weeks, they actually convinced me that I made the whole thing up, and that it was just guilt over not being there for my brother. I've been out of the facility for a week now. I was just getting ready to go out with some friends. But the woman is back. When I looked in the mirror after brushing my teeth, she was standing behind me. You know why I'm here, Revort. At least now she knows my name. I can't tell anyone she's back, because they'll lock me up again. But she's going to end up killing me. I canceled my plans with my friends and threw out all the mirrors in my house. I'm not sure what else to do. Maybe I'm just destined to be killed by the woman. Maybe I should have myself readmitted. I just don't think the facility is safer. And I don't want to live a life where I'm not even allowed to have a spoon. Maybe I should just end it on my own terms. For now, I'm gonna sign off. I'm not sure what I'll do next, but I do know I need rest. I'll come up with a plan in the morning if I survive that long. The air in Adila's basement was thick with the scent of over-buttered popcorn and cheap vanilla candles. Outside, a rhythmic rain lashed against the small, rectangular windows near the ceiling, casting flickering shadows across the 4 sleeping bags sprawled on the floor. Adila, Cleo, and Asha were huddled together, their faces illuminated by the ghostly blue glow of a dying flashlight. They had spent the last hour trading the usual urban legends. The hookman, the vanishing hitchhiker, the girl with the green ribbon around her neck. Okay, my turn, Cleo chirped, though her voice lacked any real tremor of fear. Did you hear about the babysitter who kept getting calls from inside the house? Classic, but boring, interrupted Lena. Lena sat slightly apart from the others, leaning against a cold concrete pillar. She hadn't contributed a single story all night. She just watched them with pale, unblinking eyes, her fingers tracing the hem of her dark sleeping bag. If you're so bored, Lena, then why don't you tell one? Asha challenged, crossing her arms. Make it scary if you can. Lena's lips curled into a thin, unsettling smile, and she said, I don't do legends. I prefer things that actually happened. Real blood is harder to wash out than campfire tales. The atmosphere shifted. The playful giggling died down as Lena leaned forward into the circle, the flashlight on the floor casting long, skeletal shadows upward across her face. "Have you ever heard of Samuel Thorne?" Lena asked. The girls shook their heads. "Thorne was a normal man once," Lena began, her voice dropping to a low, melodic hum. "He worked a desk job, paid his taxes, and worshipped his wife, Mia. One day, Mia got sick with cancer. It ate her from the inside out until she was just skin and bones, screaming for an end that wouldn't come." Lena's eyes seemed to glaze over, as if she were seeing the scenes play out in the dark corners of the attic. She said, "When Mia finally died, something in Samuel snapped. He didn't just want to mourn, he wanted the world to feel the same hollow, jagged hole in its chest that he felt. He decided that if God wouldn't listen to his prayers, the devil would listen to his work. He went on a killing spree," Lena continued. "It lasted for 3 nights. Samuel didn't use a gun, not at first. He liked the weight of a blade. He killed 10 people. A jogger, a convenience store clerk, a family of 4. He saved the children for last because he wanted them to watch the light go out of their parents' eyes. He thought that he was doing them a favor, showing them the truth about the world before it got the chance to lie to them." Asha shifted uncomfortably. "Lena, this is a bit much." "The police finally cornered Samuel in an old boathouse," Lena said, ignoring her. "He didn't run, he just stood there, covered in the red evidence of his sermon, and smiled. They shot him 22 times. He was dead before he hit the floor." A heavy silence followed. Then Adila let out a forced, jagged laugh and said, "Okay, wow. Morbid, but I've never seen that on the news. You totally made that up." "Yeah," Cleo added, clutching her pillow. 10 people? That would be national news. Nice try, though." They started to laugh, the tension breaking like brittle glass. "You almost had us for a second," Asha mocked. "How did you even come up with that? You read too many true crime blogs." Lena didn't laugh. She just stared at them, her expression flat and terrifyingly vacant. "How do you know it's true, Lena?" Adila asked, leaning back. "Did you see it in a dream? Or did you just find a creepy Wikipedia page?" Lena looked directly at Adila. The flashlight flickered once and died, leaving them in the oppressive gray gloom of the storm. "I know that it's true," Lena whispered, "because my father was the one who taught me everything that I know." The laughter stopped instantly. The only sound was the frantic drumming of rain on the glass. "Your father?" Asha stammered. "Lena, stop it. That's not funny." "He told me that death isn't an end," Lena said, her hand disappearing into the folds of her black sleeping bag. "He said that it's a gift that you give to the people you love. He was so sad when he had to leave before he could finish my lessons." Lena slowly began to stand up, the silhouette of her body blocking the faint light from the hallway upstairs. "Thankfully, I'm a fast learner," Lena hissed. With a rhythmic sound, Lena pulled a long, serrated hunting knife from her sleeping bag. The blade caught a stray glint of lightning, shimmering like a silver tooth in the dark. As her friends began to scream, Lena lunged forward, finally ready to put the lessons of her father, Samuel Thorne, into practice. It was a brisk winter evening when Silas first noticed the figure on his doorbell camera. He was sitting on his sofa, sipping his lukewarm tea, when his phone buzzed. He picked it up and saw the notification, motion detected at the front door. He swiped on it, and the video stream loaded. It was a woman, dressed in a long, dark coat that seemed to absorb the shadows around her. Her face was obscured by a hood, but he could see her hair, as black as the night, flowing around her shoulders. She was walking with a purposeful gait towards his front door. He watched, slightly confused, as she reached the porch. And then she did something unexpected. She didn't ring the bell, nor did she knock. Instead, she reached for a large brown box that Silas had left on the porch, waiting for the courier to retrieve it. She lifted it, surprising him with her strength, and held it as if it were as light as a feather. Silas's heart started to pound in his chest. Who was this woman? And what did she want with the box? He was about to tap the speak icon on his phone to ask her what she was doing, when she suddenly turned towards the camera. Her face was now visible, and Silas felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Her skin was pale, as if she had never seen the sun, and her eyes, wide and dark, seemed to look directly into his. There was a faint smile playing on her lips, a smile that was more malicious than friendly. Then she leaned in towards the camera. Her face filled the screen, her lips moving, but there was no sound, no audio from the camera. Just her lips, moving in a silent whisper. Silas's breath hitched in his throat. He strained his ears, as if he could hear her through the phone. And for a fleeting moment, he could have sworn he heard her voice. Not through the phone, but in his mind. "He's here," it seemed to whisper. "And he's not leaving." Silas blinked, and the woman was gone. The porch was empty. He stared at the screen, his heart pounding in his ears. Had he really seen what he thought he had? Or was it just his imagination playing tricks on him? He forced himself to stand up and walk to the front door. He opened it slowly, half expecting to see the woman waiting there. But there was nothing. No one. The porch was empty, the box still sitting where he had left it. He closed the door and locked it, but the feeling of unease lingered. He couldn't shake the sensation that someone was watching him. When he went back to his phone to rewatch the video, the footage was gone. The app displayed a message. No events recorded for this period. Silas was left alone in his living room, with only his thoughts and a nagging suspicion that something was very, very wrong. He couldn't shake the feeling that the woman from the video was not just a figment of his imagination, and that she was still there, lurking in the shadows of the garden, waiting. I thought my phone was glitching at first. Every time I tried to unlock my device, I would get the same face not recognized message over and over again. It reached a point where I just gave up. It was annoying, sure, but nothing to lose my mind over. But then I had to use the restroom. Entering the pantry, my heart sank and my jaw would have dropped had it been there. But no, I was not who I was 20 minutes ago. I had eyes, and that is about it. Just two beady irises staring back at me in the reflection, widening into a look of pure horror. I tried to scream, and all that I could produce was a weak, muffled noise, like I was underwater. Skin had grown over my lips and nose, making my face look smooth and doll-like. My hair was replaced with more skin. Not normal skin either. Gray, decaying skin that flaked away with every movement I made. I was paralyzed, too shocked, too afraid to even attempt to look away. In that shock, my body must have been trying to protect me, because I had not even realized I could not breathe until I was already on the brink of passing out. The smooth skin over my facial features began to glow, from red to purple and from purple to blue. But right before the lights went out, I noticed something. Skin began to grow from my eyelids, stretching from the top to the bottom at a snail's pace. Before, all went black. I am not dead yet. I know I am not dead. I am still here, still aware. I can feel the cold linoleum floor of my pantry beneath me. My thoughts keep racing at 100 miles a minute, but all I am able to see is darkness. "Sinin, share with Limey," my dad shouted over his shoulder to the back seat. "But I don't want to hear it," he stated. And that was that. I held the open bag toward Limey. She pulled out a handful of chips and went back to staring out the window. No matter how many road trips we took, I never got comfortable looking out the window. It always made my stomach sick. Of course, perfect Limey didn't get carsick. She got to look out the window all she wanted while eating my chips and holding on to her brand new stuffed Elsa doll. "Are we staying in the Yellow Lodge again? The one with the hot springs and the arcade?" I asked. We'd been out this way enough times that we'd stayed in most of the inns along the highway, but I always forgot the names of them. "Nope," my dad replied. "No stops this time. We're driving straight through." I leaned my head back on the seat and closed my eyes. I knew it was no use arguing, but Uncle Law's place was at least 8 hours away. I dreaded the thought of it. "Do you want to play the alphabet game?" I asked Limey. She kept her eyes on the window, but shook her head no. Of course not. God forbid this drive be anything less than torture. I decided I was ignoring Limey for the rest of the drive. Eventually, I must have drifted off, because when I opened my eyes, the sun was much lower in the sky. The radio was on now, although the reception was crackling. "Are we almost there?" I asked. "Sure are." My dad looked at me through the rearview mirror and grinned. He was always in a better mood when we'd gotten deep into the canyon, clear roads all the way to Laz. I am's gonna be there too. "Yes," I smiled back. I am was Uncle Law's daughter, but I didn't get to see her often, usually only during drop-offs. "And my parents will be there?" Limey turned to face my dad. He took his eyes off the road to look at her through the rearview mirror. "Not exactly," he said. "Your parents had that emergency I told you about, remember?" Limey shifted. She went back to looking out the window. "But guess what?" My dad's tone lightened dramatically. "They planned a surprise for you." Limey turned back to him. "We're going to drop you off, and a friend of mine is going to drive you to the mountain resort to meet them. Isn't that exciting?" My jaw dropped. "No fair," I yelled. My dad looked over at me like he'd forgotten I was there. "Why does she get to go to the resort? All the other girls get to do fun stuff like vacations and theme parks. Why don't I ever get to go?" "Sinnin'," my father said, not another word. He was so unfair. Limey didn't even seem excited. My brother, Blur, has been trying to off me since we were kids. He was Daddy's favorite. His methods used to be amateur, foxglove mixed into my chili. A cheeky shove down the stairs at a fundraiser. New, a year younger, equally unhinged. He tried to slice my throat when I was 8. When you're rich, actions do not have consequences. From birth, we knew we were special. Knew we had to fight to inherit our father's fortune. If we fucked up, we either shifted the blame or covered it up. Knew killed a classmate in his sophomore year. 1 5-minute phone call with our mother, and the boy never existed. Barali was the youngest, the smartest. She played people like cards. I wasn't any better, the stereotypical rich bitch. As long as we made donations, we could get away with anything. 0 consequences made killing each other easier. 0 consequences meant 0 empathy. When we were 16, Barali tried to burn us and the penthouse alive. Daddy lectured us in his office. Going against him meant getting my gold card revoked. So I pasted on a smile, "Sorry, Daddy." "Blur?" Daddy nodded at my brother, who rolled his eyes. "Sure," he muttered. New didn't say anything, arms folded, gaze glued to the ceiling. Barali stood silently, a charred matchstick clenched between manicured nails. "Hold hands," Dad instructed us. "Now." We did. Reluctantly, I grabbed Barali's hand, who snatched Blur's. New, after exhaling a long, dragged-out sigh, accepted Blur's. It was humiliating. My blood boiled. My cheeks burned. Barali's hand was too cold. Blear's was too warm. Slimy. Barali drove the heel of her 800,000 stiletto into my toe when Daddy wasn't looking. Blear dug bloody half-moons into my palms. The two of them wore wide smiles for Daddy. Perfect porcelain poker faces while squeezing the breath from my lungs. Daddy's lips curved into a smile. That wasn't hard now, was it? He leaned forward. Daddy was old. Old. Not normal old. Rotting corpse old. I expected him to be 6 feet fucking under by my junior year. "I want my children to always be together," Daddy crooned. His tone held a terrifying authority I couldn't disobey. So, we made an unspoken pact. When our father breathed his last breath, the killing game would continue. But Dad didn't die until I was 24, 98 years old. 8 years had passed. Enough years for resentment and hatred to fizzle out. Enough time for me to develop an attachment to my siblings. I cared that Blur was engaged. I cared that Barali and her girlfriend were trying IVF. I cared about New and his stupid private mountain retreat, full of stray kitties. So, the day that Mom called me crying with the news, I felt lost. Wrong. I retrieved my gun from my bedroom, the one I'd hid as a 16-year-old, promising myself I would shoot my siblings dead the moment our father croaked. Blur immediately tried to kill me when I turned up at his loft, gun pointed between his eyes. I remembered how to find the perfect trajectory. But my brother wasn't stupid. He opened the door, kitchen knife, already tracing the curve of my throat. New was sitting on his sofa, legs crossed, nursing his bruised eye. Borali leaned against the wall, cigarette between her lips, a golden lock of hair twirled around her finger. She'd been scalped, half of her ponytail ripped out. Blur's loft was trashed. His lounge resembled a war zone, couch tipped over, telltale splatters of blood staining rich marble. "Wait," Blur whispered when I tried to pull out my gun. "Ruby, wait." I let my hand drop, and in turn, he let his knife hit the ground. "Dad left us a letter," he whispered, his breath heavy in my face. My brother held up an envelope sealed with Dad's signature. "Before we do anything rash," he gasped out, "we should probably read it." I surrendered my weapon. "Right." Blur stepped back with a grin. "Then we'll open it together." Borali and New joined us, and we ripped it open. The letter itself was folded into a tiny pocket square. I impatiently watched my brother unfold it, my hands already twitching to pull out the knife I'd hidden in my jeans back pocket. "My dear children," Blur read out, holding the letter up to the light. Dad's writing was barely legible, written in intricate black ink. "My final wish is for you to be together," Blur read out, his lips forming a smile. He let out a relieved breath, and I dropped all pretense, that feral, almost animalistic urge in my bones bleeding away. "So," Blear continued, his voice breaking. His hands holding the letter began to tremble. "I have organized a procedure to be conducted the second I take my last breath." He dropped the letter, letting out a hiss. "What the fuck?" I snatched it up, scanning the rest. "Do not worry, I've tested it on animals and then human subjects. The full merge of the four of you, your bodies and minds melded together. That is my last wish." New snatched the letter off me and pulled out a lighter. "This never fucking happened," he hissed out, igniting the parchment under a dancing flame. "We never read it. The fucking thing never existed." I watched Dad's letter erupt into smoldering black. A sickly-looking Borali nodded, grabbing my hand. Then the door flew open. A suited man, a lance flung over the top. He smiled widely. "The Devuer siblings? Ah, good, you're all here," he said. He led in several people wearing surgical masks. The man pulled on light blue gloves, already stained scarlet, and held up a syringe, filling it with blue liquid. "I'm here to fulfill your father's last wish." He nodded at me, lips splitting into a grin. "Ruby, you will be the head." The first thing I noticed was the dog licking my father-in-law's hand. Caleb had spent all lunch under the table, waiting for scraps. Her dad hated dogs near him, said they smelled, shed, begged, and knew too much. So when Caleb trotted into the conservatory and started licking the old man's fingers where they hung over the arm of the recliner, I only got up to drag him away before Sadie saw. Just me, half a lager in my hand, stepping over wrapping paper. "Leave it," I muttered, nudging the dog with my foot. Caleb backed off, but not properly. He stayed close to the chair, whining softly. I reached down to move Silas's hand back onto the armrest. It was cold. Not freezer cold. Not corpse cold from the telly. Just wrong. I looked at him properly then. His mouth was open a little. Chin tucked into his chest. Eyes not shut, exactly, but not looking at anything either. The paper crown he'd refused to take off was still sitting on his head, slipped sideways above one ear. "Silas?" I said quietly. "Nothing." I touched his wrist. I knew straight away. From the kitchen, Sadie shouted, "Can you ask Dad if he wants cream or custard?" I just stood there with my fingers on her father's wrist and stared at the doorway. "Mark?" she called again. "Did you hear me?" I let go and stepped back. "Yeah," I said. "One sec." That was the moment I should have said it. Instead, I picked Silas's hand up by the fingertips, settled it back on the chair, and told myself I'd say it in 1 second. Just as soon as I got Sadie out of the kitchen. Just as soon as the kids weren't listening. 1 second. I went into the kitchen. Sadie was spooning custard into a jug. "Well?" I looked back toward the conservatory. Silas sat there by the bay window, half in shadow, like he'd nodded off after too much wine. "Custard," I said. "See?" Sadie said to her mum. "I told you." Her mum laughed. "Your father would have custard on a roast dinner if you let him." I carried the jug through with both hands because they were shaking too much for one. Nobody noticed anything was wrong. The telly was on. Ruby and Ben were arguing over a board game on the rug. Sadie's brother, Oscar, was opening another bottle of red and talking over everyone. Silas being quiet, if anything, improved the day. I put the custard down and glanced over at him. A fly was circling his face. Not a big blue bottle. Just one of those sluggish little winter flies you get in overheated houses. It buzzed near his temple, landed on his cheek, lifted off again. Oscar handed me a wine glass. "You all right? You look green." "Fine," I said. The fly landed on Silas's top lip. I took a step forward without meaning to. It stayed there a second, rubbing its front legs together. Then it slipped between his lips and disappeared into his mouth. I felt my stomach drop so hard I thought I might be sick on the carpet. Sadie was still in the kitchen. Oscar was fighting with the corkscrew. The kids were shouting about dice. Just me, standing there with a dead man in a paper crown and a fly vanishing into his mouth. I grabbed a napkin and crossed the room. "What are you doing?" Oscar asked. "Bit of gravy," I muttered. There wasn't gravy in his mouth. I bent over Silas and dabbed uselessly at his lips. They were slightly damp. The napkin came away clean. I could smell whiskey and cold meat and something beginning underneath both. "Can someone shut that bloody dog up?" Sadie's mom called. I took Caleb into the hall and shut him behind the baby gate by the stairs. When I came back, Ruby was standing beside the recliner in her socks, holding a plastic tiara. "Granddad," she said, "look what I got." I got to her so fast, I nearly knocked her over. "Leave him," I snapped. The whole room went quiet. Ruby's face crumpled at once. Sadie came in from the kitchen and stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "What's wrong with you?" she said. "Nothing. Just let him sleep." Oscar laughed. "Since when do you care about Silas getting his beauty rest?" Sadie picked Ruby up and said, "For one day, could you not do this with my family?" I looked past her at her father in the chair. The crown had slipped lower. His mouth was still open, that little bit too wide. "Sadie," I said. She was already turning away. "Not now." Everyone drifted back into noise. Her mum brought the trifle through. Oscar put the football on. Sadie said she wanted one nice boxing day without tension for once, and I stood there with red wine soaking into my jumper and thought maybe I could still give her 10 more minutes of that. Then Silas's hand slipped off the armrest and dropped with a soft thud against the side of the chair. I flinched so hard I nearly dropped my glass. Oscar looked over and grinned. "He's conked, ain't he?" I swallowed. "Yeah." He laughed and turned back to the match. A minute later, Sadie came back in with her phone. "Right," she said. "Before pudding, I want one photo. One nice normal photo with all of us." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. "Come on," she said. "Wake Dad up." I stepped toward the recliner. The room went distant, all the voices flattened under the rush of blood in my ears. I could hear the TV, the kids, the dog scratching in the hall, Sadie saying, "Mark?" Silas's paper crown slid another inch sideways. His jaw sagged open a little wider, and as Sadie lifted her phone and said, "Smile," a fly crawled slowly out of her father's mouth. I'd done babysitting jobs before. It was a quick way to make some cash without working too much. When I saw the ad on a forum, the high pay attracted me immediately. Sitter wanted. Friday night from midnight to 4 a.m. I liked that the hours were fixed, so I wouldn't have to wait for the parents to come home and end up staying longer than agreed. Some parents were fucking scammers, man. Always promising to come home early and then refusing to pay for the extra time. The ad was simple, but it mentioned nothing about any children. I called the number, and when I asked about the kids, the voice on the other end went silent. There's no child, ma'am. I just need you to sit on this chest for a while." "What do you mean?" "I mean, sit on it for 4 hours so the thing inside doesn't come out. Do you believe in demons?" "No, not really. Even better. I was cursed a while ago, and I keep getting chests or boxes in the mail. If I open them, there's nothing inside, but if they aren't, blocked, something weird comes out at night. That's how my last boyfriend went missing. I didn't believe in it, and I woke up one day to find the chest open and empty, and he was gone. I really don't know what else to tell you, because that's all I know. I'll just mail the package to you. You don't even have to come to my house. You can just mail it back in the morning. You won't have to sit on it every night, just when I'm going out and can't sit on it myself. I honestly thought it was a little funny. We met in a public plaza and she showed me the chest. I inspected it, opened it, it was empty, and turned it around to look for hidden cameras, mics, or anything shady. It was a simple wooden chest with nothing to show and nothing to hide. I took it home. I sat on the lid shortly before midnight, scrolling through my phone. I was curious, but I wasn't going to mess around. I would sit on it from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. for the $200. End of discussion. Oh, and it might try to trick you. Your phone might ring, or the doorbell, anything like that, just to make you get up. Don't listen. Sure. Easiest $200 ever made. I sat on the wooden lid and watched videos on my phone. The chest was oddly warm, and at some point around 1 a.m., I could feel a murmur inside. It vibrated slightly. It was a little exciting, I won't lie. Around 2 a.m., I heard a knock from the inside of the chest. I turned off my phone. Had I imagined it, it didn't happen again, but it still made me feel uneasy. I was beginning to doze off, so I played a game on my phone to stay awake. At around 30:44 a.m., I got a text from the woman who posted the ad, asking if anything strange had happened. No, it was fine. Stu. Okay, well, you can get up now. Prue. I did well, because the next day the owner of the chest claimed she hadn't sent any text at all. I checked, and the message I'd supposedly received was gone. Had I hallucinated it? Wow. It had tried to trick me into getting up earlier? Smart. Over the next 5 months, I sat, not babysat 15 other times. The woman explained that sometimes she received another chest in the mail, and that's how she knew she could throw away the old one. If she tried to throw it away before, it just kept getting mailed back to her home. I had to sit on shoeboxes and closed baskets, which were a little uncomfortable. Once, I sat on a sealed suitcase that made a wet, shifting sound whenever I adjusted my weight. The freakiest experience was around gig 7 or 8, when I heard a loud thud upstairs. I live alone, and it was roughly 2 a.m., but I couldn't investigate for obvious reasons. I just sat there and waited for 4 a.m. to come so I could finally see what was going on. Nothing was out of place when I checked. Nothing out of the ordinary. Another time, I heard my cat meowing from inside the box. Well, Mars, I remembered thinking. If you're really in there, you can wait for another hour. You won't die. Aft. After the time was up, I opened it to find nothing inside. See, I became immune to the tricks. Nothing would make me get up. Something truly demonic was going on, something I couldn't explain, but I was smart enough not to disobey. She redirected the last package to me, so I received a delivery. Inside the package was a tiny chest box with weird paintings on the side, the kind that opens into a board. Inside, I found some chess pieces. The kings and queens had sinister faces painted on them, and their eyes freaked me out so much that I shoved them back inside and closed the lid. It's getting creative, I thought. Its size allowed me to sit on it while in bed, so the effort was practically non-existent. I took it upstairs and got to work. Around 2 a.m., my doorbell rang. It rang and rang, then I heard desperate bangs on the door, followed by silence. Then, footsteps downstairs. I knew it was trying to trick me, but it was still freaky and odd. Thump, thump, thump. Up the stairs, I was glad I'd closed my bedroom door. It somehow made me feel safer, even if I knew the real threat was inside the chest box I was sitting on. Calm down. The threat is not real. It won't hurt you as long as you sit down. The sound of fingers tapping against my bedroom door. Blood was pounding in my ears, my chest hollow. Every breath felt like pushing a boulder up a hill. Every breath felt like pushing a boulder up a hill. May 4 a.m., come faster. For the love of God. My doorknob turned, but the door didn't open. The footsteps moved downstairs in a way that reminded me of a demented waltz. On twinner, 3-1er, twinner, 3-1. I began breathing heavily. I called the woman. Hey, this might be the last gig because it's just getting a little too real. What do you mean? Someone is waltzing downstairs. They were right at my bedroom door. I know this is all a hallucination, but it messes with my head a little too much. I'll finish this gig, and then I'm afraid you'll have to find someone else. I'm really sorry to hear that. Okay then. Well, you have another hour to go. Yeah. You having fun at the party? Yeah, but you can still call me if you're freaked out. Just don't get up, please, no matter what. It's not an uncomfortable position, since I'm literally laying in bed right now. Sort of. A pause. You're laying in bed? Yeah. The rhythm downstairs increased. But how? You put it on your bed? I mean, it's a chest box. It's small. Another pause. What do you mean it's a chest box? Came the choked out question. That's what you fucking sent me. No, I sent you a cardboard box. Well, that was the packaging. You can't just send out a chest box. The post service wraps it up. No, it was a cardboard box with nothing inside. It was small, but definitely not a chest box. I don't know what you found inside, but I sent it empty. When did I ever send you the creeless thing in another bigger package? Please, for the love of God, tell me you didn't fall for it. Blood rushed into my cheeks. The waltzing downstairs continued mockingly, loud and proud. You can't mail a chest box by itself, I responded, suddenly uneasy. You are not supposed to receive a chest box. What the fuck? Please tell me you didn't leave the cardboard box unattended. It was the packaging, I replied, on the verge of tears. No, 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 no. She was almost hysterical. The waltzing downstairs stopped. I remembered the cardboard box that came in the mail. It was roughly the size of the chest box inside. Every single thing I'd sat on before had been empty. I was suddenly unsure of what I'd been sitting on for the past 3 hours. What if I'd hallucinated that the real box contained another one inside? That had never happened before. Was I truly sitting on nothing now? A long, teasing whistle broke the silence. I suddenly got the urge to lock my bedroom door. If I'd left the grill's box unattended downstairs, shit. Or, is it a trick? Did I hallucinate the call? Is it trying to make me get up? Time is almost up, but now I can hear someone going up the stairs. What do I do now? What do I do?